mighty people across the grand and mighty spectrums of time and indeed the multiverse. I am Gordon Johans, and you might be noticing something different about my delivery and tone. Things were bad. Things were very, very, very bad because, you see, I'm doomed. Basically doomed. Because I am a fuck-up. I am a weird fuck-up, and my Kalman syndrome and growth hormone deficiency means I can't do manual labour, and my autism means I can't do customer service jobs, and my autism also means that I fuck up the interviews. So I can basically only apply for admin jobs or jobs within the kind of field that will leave me pinned between fresh graduates with the right degrees and, you know, people who are coming out of retirement with a lifetime of experience. I'm screwed. At a certain point, I am going to be forced onto benefits onto the social security system, and the thing is, we have been trying to get me to work with the social security system. The issue is that my autism, my Asperger's syndrome, is just such that I can work, so I can't go on disability, but my brain can't deal with the universal credit system, so I can't really go on the social security system. So unless something changes, unless my YouTube channel takes off greatly, which it isn't going to, because basically the only way it's making any money whatsoever is because Nazis are fucking stupid, and they're like, I hate this guy, I want to destroy him, I will follow him forever and make sure he gets loads of ad revenue. Which is all well and good for ad revenue, but not necessarily amazing for building up a Patreon support base, and frankly there is little chance for me actually building up a Patreon support base. So yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, there is hope. Things could happen theoretically, but I don't know what they are. As far as I am concerned, at least, there is a kind of ticking clock in the background of, like, at some point the money is going to run out, it's not going to be practically viable to live. And so for some time now I have been getting demoralized as attempt after attempt to get out there and do stuff has just met with failure after failure after failure after failure. You know, and it grinds away at you. It grinds away at your confidence and your hope and your faith, and you're just like, shit. You know. And the fact that essentially, right, the only real, like, my best hope is that Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister. And I am increasingly losing hope of that as well. So things are not good for me. And so at a certain point I stopped caring. And I just was like, okay, this is my life. At some point I'm gonna die. I don't know when, I don't know at what point things are going to change for the worse, but they're going to, and I don't particularly care. So I just sort of gave in to hedonism and gave in to chasing the pursuits that make me, you know, feel good. Trouble is, that meant that I was effectively living in a purgatory. Because when you chase pleasure and you don't care about anything, because there was a point when I was trying to disconnect from my own life, but I was caring about the politics, and then basically Trump was elected and turned out to be basically full-on Nazi, and then hard Brexit happened, and then Corbyn ended up in the position of basically politically being made to back Brexit, and so it's like, okay, can't care about politics now either, and then I lost hold of stuff. I lost hold of giving a shit at all about anyone, about anything, and it's like, yeah, I have friends who I've got family members who have got cancer. I've got friends who are losing jobs, who are in, you know, who have got their own problems. I've got friends in America, and I am so worried about them. And it's funny how you find yourself, you know, being thankful for states' rights when it's like, yay, maybe this liberal state will be able to blunt the terror of Trump. Maybe I want my friends to be okay. So it's just this feeling of kind of panic and kind of not being able to deal with panic. So you just cut off and cut off and cut off and cut off. And so I found myself being pulled more and more and more towards my fantasies, towards my internal space. And this is a problem because, right, my default mode, my default way of being is that once I'm up, right? I'm basically up until I pass out, and right? Me going to bed is basically just me knowing that, you know, my sort of metaphorical battery is running low, and it's like, okay, now clean teeth, change into pajamas, lie down in bed, ready, 3, 2, 1, switch off the computer, switch off the light, you know. I don't generally go to sleep early, and I cannot generally do that. I don't generally like to do that, and there has typically been a very great reason for that, and that is that if I go to bed, right, my subconscious basically decides to talk to me, and it's like, all these horrible things, of horrible things shall come out, and they shall destroy you. And so therefore, you know, that's kind of why I took solace in the fetishes. That's kind of why I have chased these fantasies so fucking much. Because it's almost like the sort of imaginative equivalent of like having a blanket or something, you know. It's like, it's okay, the zombies won't get me, Amy Pond is here, Amy Pond is in my mind, everything will be fine, there will be no zombies, there will be no gigantic sharks eating me tonight. And so I keep going and I keep going, and I've always done this. This is why I cycle around the clock. And it's a very fucked up way to live, but it's normal for me. It is how I function. And so lately, not only have I not been cycling around the clock in that regard, I've been having naps. I don't have naps. I don't do naps. When I get tired, I grit my teeth and I say, yeah, I'm finishing this series, I don't give a fuck. But lately, I just haven't had the energy. I just when you don't care about anything, you want to go to the land of Nod, where you can be unconscious and you can have your fancies. And it's like, at a certain point, I cared so little, and I liked, there was so little in my life that I cared about, that the nightmares of my subconscious held no power over me anymore. To the point where I have had several nights effectively ruined because the fancies that are supposed to be, you know, like the nightlight, just there to keep me sort of safe from the subconscious trying to traumatize me, where these fancies have ended up being so stimulating and so engaging that I don't actually get any sleep. And I am really sorry about how fucking shiny my forehead is. I can only imagine that as I get older, that's going to get worse and worse and worse. As my hairline recedes. But yeah, my subconscious ceased to be a problem, and instead my fancy started to become it as well. And part of this is that as I stopped giving a shit about the, I suppose, militant left, because let's face it, at this point there is no denying that there is a militant left, right? Heck, I'm cheering on segments of the militant left. I'm like, yeah, punch Nazis. But equally, just as there are people who are, you know, basically preparing for war against legitimate genocidal madmen like Richard Spencer and Stephen Bannon, there are also people who are just like, you disagree with me, you're a Nazi, you want to kill everyone, fuck you, I will attack you and get all my friends to attack you. And it's like, I kind of have the opposite to sort of like arrogance or selfishness, where it's like, if it happens to me, oh, it must be an aberration. Everybody's dead. What are you talking about? I deserve it. But the moment it happens to other people, I give a shit. And so seeing the fact that, you know, the left is attacking other people, attacking good people, kind of meant I stopped caring about the left, about certain segments of the left's criticisms of me. Because of course you always want to make sure you keep base with, you know, with the people whose ideologies you most sort of agree with, because apart from anything else, it's like a grounding pole, you know. You want to make sure that you're not drifting too far away from the ideologies, and you want to have someone who you want to make sure you can kind of keep a check on how you're feeling, and that you're not slipping into darkness. Especially for me, like I give a shit about that. I want to make sure that I don't accidentally turn into Darth Vader. Admittedly, it would be slightly difficult to accidentally trip, fall into a volcano, and lose, you know, most of my hands, but most of my limbs. I meant to say most of my limbs. I don't have enough hands to lose most of them. But I still try to keep touch with, you know, the left and their kind of discussion and ideology, but I stopped caring about what the more militant people said, you know. And part of that was just, you know, withdrawing and just like, hey, I'm no use to feminism if I end up killing myself, so even if I am a misogynistic douchebag, you probably want me on the barricades at some point. So I think it's wise I don't kill myself. So I think it's wise I don't give a shit about what you're saying. And so I stopped caring about them, and it's like, now my fantasies have well and truly beaten my subconscious, because through the kind of the darkness of my stories, through essentially vor fiction, my fantasies have now become so very dark that my subconscious doesn't bother anymore. Right? Like, the worst my subconscious can throw at me is like, but like, what if you were at university and the Nazi trolls were like the jocks from school, and they were next door and they were tall and muscly and they were humiliating you? And it's just like, well, that's my life, I don't care. You're literally describing a set of events that I have already dealt with and don't care about. The fact that they are epitomized into one easily punchable figure doesn't really bother me, right? Like I literally reached a point where the best my sort of subconscious could throw at me to kind of psychologically disturb me was, well, I will embarrass you and make you feel ashamed. And it's like, yes, I am a nerd. I feel this on a daily basis. This doesn't really work. There really isn't much more that, you know, my subconscious can do to shame me that, you know, that I don't experience on a daily basis just looking down. So I stopped. It's not that I stopped having nightmares, it's that my nightmares stopped bothering me. And my fantasies took more and more hold, and sleeping became more and more the thing I wanted to do. And, like, to a certain extent, writing has always been for me an excuse. You know, it's an excuse for me to formulate and give structure to these ideas and fantasies, right? It's a way for me to work out feelings and shit. The problem that essentially the moment that kind of really made me realise was that I had sort of a problem and that this was an issue, was that I effectively ended up telling myself a story from the series that I am writing just to myself in my dream, in my sleep. And it was like, in that moment, you know, completely asleep, well, not completely asleep, but in that moment, in bed, you know, eye mask on, you know, what have you, that I was essentially in my own mental VR simulation of this story, just living out this fantasy, and it was so engaging and so delightful. And I kind of, you know, I've read enough sci-fi to, well, I've watched enough sci-fi and read enough discourse on sci-fi to be kind of wary of the idea of sort of the Lotus Eater machine, of, you know, or you know, the idea of, like, I think it's in like the Infinite Jest or whatever, that there is this idea of the entertainment, that there is this almost sort of eldritch thing because it's so engaging that people just stop living. Like, they're just utterly consumed by it. And it's like, I basically realised that I was in danger of utterly withdrawing from the world and just living for my fantasies. And the fact that my fantasies, the fact that that fantasy in particular basically involved, like, Hannibal Lecter and a gigantic tentacled alien with teeth in its arse, you know, kind of working together to eat an Amy Pond who could regenerate her limbs and liked the sensation of pain, right? Like there was like that is a scenario where it's like, yeah, fetishes, but still that's dark. That is dark, and admittedly, like that's why sort of my subconscious holds no power over me, because it's like you know, well, you know, sharks, yes, I've got controvoxi that, you know, have tentacles that each have the ability to tear me limb from limb, and I like that, fuck you, you know. Like, no, a shark might eat me, and actually, no, here's a controvoxi, and it's going to tear me limb from limb, and I'm going to enjoy that, because fuck you, psychology. And so, yeah, kind of, I realised that was a problem. That was a problem, and I sort of woke up from that, and this was again another one of those, I'm going to sleep, oh dear, the fantasy has taken over. And I realised this was a problem. And I sort of, I wrote one of the, I wrote a blog, and lately I've basically just been writing blogs to figure out how the fuck I feel. And at this point I've basically given up on titles for the blogs, and I'm just like, number of date, right? But this blog, I just kind of explained how shitty I was feeling and how lost I was feeling. And because I'd, you know, gotten up at like 2 AM, I started eating some soft mints, some treble or spearmint flavoured soft mints, and eating some matchmakers and drinking some Diet Coke. And I started to feel like myself again. I started to feel the drive and the passion and the energy and the sort of the frantic, yeah, I need to do something. And like, this is a sensation of essentially constant background anxiety and stress, right? So it's therefore something that, you know, if you're, you know, depressed and, you know, sort of suicidal, you want to back away from, because bad things, keep bad things away. But it's like suddenly I had a heartbeat again. I gave a shit again. It mattered. And I feel renewed. I feel replenished. And it's not just the mints, it's not just the Diet Coke, although yes, I did go out to the shops today, principally to buy margarine, but I did also buy some mints and a bottle of Mountain Dew that I have already drunk, so as to keep my sort of caffeine levels and sugar levels, well, not necessarily sugar, but my sort of sweetness levels high, my energy high. And you know, I like, as much as I don't really like the taste of coffee, and I will have to basically train myself to like black coffee, because it's like, I might be able to afford black coffee. Like, you can afford to boil water, and, you know, like a pot of coffee, you know, like some instant coffee, you know, like 2-3 quid, you know, that can last you a while. I might have to get myself used to that, but it's not just about the sweets and the sort of the caffeinated beverages. It's also that, like, in a way, that was kick-starting an engine that had been sort of laying idle, in the sense that I do care. I am stubborn and pig-headed and greedy and lustful, and you know, to a certain extent, I bear a fucking good grudge. And I am angry, and these are all things that, again, I've been trying to step away from because not good things, but, like, I remember, you know, being back in the school playground, and, like, how I learned to channel anger and stress into other energy, into doing other things. And it's like all these elements of myself that I don't necessarily like, they're part of me, and they let me keep fighting even when it's fucking futile. Because make no mistake, my life at this point is futile. I'm never gonna have kids. I'm gonna be damned fucking lucky if I can find anyone from this point forward who can give me any kind of solace as a person romantically. And I'm gonna be damned fucking lucky if I can find a way out of this catch-22 I'm in with regards to the benefit situation and my inability to find a job. Right? Time is running out, and I don't know how much time is left. And thing is, even when I'd given up, I wasn't going to commit suicide until at least I'd finished, you know, moving to Wolverhampton. Even actually, no, I shouldn't say. I am so very, very glad that I just fucked up there. Yes, I'm going to Wolverhampton. All Nazis, head to fucking Wolverhampton. Actually, no, don't besiege Wolverhampton. Wolverhampton's a nice place. They have Dalek graffiti and a forbidden planet. Do not besiege Wolverhampton. But yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, you know, I was gonna put it off until at least, you know, we'd settle down in this new place, you know, wherever it is. Of course I know, but, you know, again, Nazis! I can't tell the Nazis! So, and I'm not sort of talking about sort of the radical left version of, anybody who disagrees with me is a Nazi. No, I'm talking about literal fans of genocide Nazis. Like, I don't want to tell them where I live. But no, once I was always going to hold on out until we'd moved to this new place. But I think almost to a certain extent, that was more me feeling like someone in purgatory, wondering how long they can hold on. Like, you know, it's almost, you know, like when you're walking back, say, like times when I've been walking back from Woking and I've forgotten to go to the loo after having a KFC, and you reach a certain point where you're in pain and you're tired as fuck, but you can't stop, and so you just tell yourself, well, I'm nearly home, it's just out there, it's gonna be fine, so just get there and I'll be good. And then you get there and you're like, okay, I'm nearly home, I just need to get there and I'll be good. And I suppose it was almost the sort of the putting off suicide equivalent of that, of just like, yeah, I just need to avoid killing myself until this point. And then if I actually got there, when I got there, it'd be like, I just need to hold it off until there, you know. But I was effectively in purgatory, right? I wasn't going to commit suicide, and yet at the same time I wasn't living. And as much as I liked the life I had, it could have gone from me in a moment and I would not have cared. Not just because I'm an anti-theist and I, you know, fully expect that, you know, the void is going to come for me and that there will be nothing when I'm dead. I will just cease to exist. And now I have to blow my nose because, so pause the video. So effectively, I had made myself a straitjacket of circumstance. I had made myself a mental trap to keep me in a state of stasis that I didn't like. And the thing is that I'm still in the same fundamental situation. I'm still fundamentally fucked. But you know, it's like Leo McGarry says, you know, in series 7 of The West Wing, you know, why don't we just leave it out on the field? If I am fucked, I might as well go down swinging. And I don't just mean, you know, swinging at fascists. I mean, so fucking what if it's pointless trying to get a job? So fucking what if it's difficult getting volunteering going? So fucking what if I make a fool of myself in social situations? I'm gonna fucking try. And I feel so much better because of that. And it's like, yeah, I've had a good day today. I have gone for a walk, I have bought things, and I have gotten some, I've gotten a good, decent session of Rome Total War done, and I have made progress towards, you know, things like, you know, getting Cisco certified as a sort of Cisco technician or whatever, to kind of go down the IT route, the IT tech support route, because apart from anything else, even if I can't get a job with it, it'll mean that I'm better able to, you know, help my family with stuff. And hopefully it will, you know, give me more avenues to get a job, and it's sort of more practical, like, it's sort of as close as probably I can get to getting a trade, and, you know, I've sent off for more volunteering, and there is also the sort of possibility looming again that maybe I might actually be able to go to Nine Worlds Geek Fest. Obviously money's an issue because it's £100 for the tickets, and then there is also the fact that, you know, it's in London, so I'd have to get a hotel for the duration, and well, we don't actually know where the fuck we're gonna be staying, you know. We don't know where the fuck we're gonna be living when this is happening, because it's just far enough in the future that we don't know, right? Like, I'm gonna be staying in Woking until, like, until April, at least. But we don't know what the fuck happens beyond that point, basically. For all we know, we could end up selling the house within a month and getting a new one. Well, I suppose 2 new ones because my dad would get his. It doesn't matter. But we don't know. So there are hurdles, there are problems, it's going to be difficult. And it might not work. And that's kind of going to be my life from this point. It's like, it's gonna be difficult, and it might not work, and it could be a complete waste of fucking time and a fuck up. But it's better than not trying. It is fucking better than not trying, and I have realised that I would rather be humiliated and exhausted and in pain and have tried than to have played it safe and end up back in that purgatory. And it's like, I am going to finish this sort of reboot of the Farshnuk. And it's kind of a mini-series sort of thing, with sort of each part dealing with its own separate thing, as it's kind of, I suppose it's kind of like Mass Effect 2, or indeed the sort of the founding of sort of the Lucy Paragon story arc that didn't really get kicked off. In the sense that each part is kind of dealing with the recruitment of a different character towards this roster, because essentially, I mean, what I can reveal now, because it's essentially revealed in the first, part of this, is that, and the first part of this is already written, I will be going back over it, and I will be doing, like, proofreading and stuff later. But essentially, I mean, again, bear in mind, like, until, I'm not going to be releasing this until, like, enough parts are written that I feel it can stand as a whole, so it still might not come out. But essentially the idea is that with the Farshnuk dead, having sacrificed himself at the end of the Great Septagonoid War, that, first off, the Logicios, like, pretty much the Logicios for a vast amount of time were like this tyrannical jackboot, basically just tolerated because, hey, they're keeping the Septagonoids at bay, you get rid of them, the multiverse goes through. And the United Civilizations of the Multiverse were basically formed in response to the Logicios, and they are essentially a union of different civilizations who are fighting against the Septagonoids, but are also basically trying to keep an eye on the Logicios. So effectively, the moment the Great Septagonoid War ends, every Farshnuk dies, every Lucy dies around the multiverse, and so bear in mind that essentially the power of the Logicios is not just, hey, if you get rid of them, the multiverse goes boom. It's also that they are the people who were founded by the Farshnuk. They know the Farshnuk best. They basically have trained Farshnuks on their side, and they have the truly monstrous Farshnuks on their side, right? Because essentially they can keep sort of feral, monstrous, serial killer Farshnuk's tame, but because they are the great, sort of slave trader state when it comes to sylphs, so they can basically be like, here, have another pretty girl, it's okay, you won't attack us because we can just keep giving you pretty girls to keep you on side. And so, like, while there are Farshnooks on every side, whilst there are Farshnooks on the United Civilizations of the Multiverse, and indeed, you know, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse is basically run and orchestrated by the great Lucy Paragon and her sort of clones. They all die the moment that the moment that the Farshnook dies, because the Farshnook's soul is intertwined with Lucy. And so essentially, like, the difference between the Logicios and the United Civilizations of the Multiverse is that the United Civilizations of the Multiverse are a united civilization. They are overseen by this one central figure and mentality that is controlling every unit, but they are a group of individuals following orders, right? And so Lucy will have made clear at numerous points, every single one, hey, the moment that this war is over, we swing round and we kick the Logicios in the ass. And similarly, Farshnooks within the Logicios would have been like, hey, the moment this is over, Logicios need to change. But the Logicios are... a good deal of their strength comes from the fact they have the Farshnooks, right? Because, yes, you know, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse have the Lucys, but kind of in the rock, paper, scissors, Farshnook trumps Lucy. In the sense that the Farshnook is especially the sort of more primal, more feral ones, they are utterly manipulative dickbags who don't give a shit. Whereas Lucy is, well, she's a sylph, so she's naturally more likely to be more easily handled by the other Farshnooks. And of course, the Lucy is one mentality across many different bodies and identities, whereas the Farshnooks in the Logicios are loads and loads of different versions from loads and loads of different universes. So essentially, right, when it comes, when the Great Septaginoid War is going on, and I know I'm doing a tangent to explain this, but fuck it, I've got the energy, I feel like it, I want to do this. That basically, when the Great Septaginoid War is going on, the Logicios have the advantage of the United Civilizations of the Multiverse because their Farshnooks are able to act individually. Okay, and they are able to fight dirtier. The strength of the United Civilizations of the Multiverse is that once the Great Septaginoid War ends, once the Farshnooks disappear and the Lucys go away, the Logicios are still kind of trapped, ruled by this sort of bureaucratic, fascistic idea of slave labor, whereas but at the same time they don't have the Farshnooks to enforce this anymore, or even not necessarily to enforce it, but to give the kind of charisma to keep people in line, to be the silver lining that keeps people in their places, right? To be the good eggs that keep people in line even when they know they're working in a bad organization because, hey, he's a nice guy, I don't really care. And so the moment the Far Nukes go, then the Logicios lose a lot of their teeth. They're suddenly a lot more vulnerable than they used to be because they can be attacked at 4. They can be attacked entirely without fear of the multiverse going boom. And the United Civilizations of the Multiverse is all these different individual independent cultures without the limitations of fascism. And they can act individually. And at the same time as this is going on, you have the Self-Liberation Front, which is effectively like a sort of feminist-aligned self-equivalent of a sort of terrorist insurgency group who have been sort of consistently batting against the Logicios all this time during the Great Logicio War, but they've kind of held back to a certain extent, or been held back to a certain extent because of the whole, hey, if they go down, the multiverse goes boom. The moment that's no longer the case, the SLF go in and they start recruiting like mad, right? And the Far Nukes aren't there to kind of maintain order anymore, or to put a stop to this anymore, because like that's what you do. If a bunch of, you know, feminist insurgencies come along and attack your you know, sort of system of female slavery, you send in your misogynist who basically eats women for breakfast, right? You send in the Far Nuke to deal with the mess, but they have no Far Nukes. And the United Civilizations of the Multiverse are basically the end point of the war, because like the United Civilizations of the Multiverse has been growing and expanding in power as the Logicios have been waning, because the Logicios effectively accidentally ended up creating the United Civilizations of the Multiverse because they saw, hey, at some point we're gonna lose this war, or we could, right? They foresaw that they were gonna essentially be so ground down by the relentless losses against the Septaginoid forces that they weren't going to keep up anymore. And so whilst the United Civilizations of the Multiverse have been expanding, right, that has cushioned that has made it easier for the Logicios to a certain extent, and has kept them around for so long. But it also means that when this time comes, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse, they've been expanding and expanding and expanding because essentially, right, the Bamkirch turned up to this, you know, young United Civilization of the Multiverse and basically said to Lucy Dance, you know, the paragon of virtue, this kind of grand dictator with her clones all across the United Civilizations of the Multiverse, and basically said, look, I will be your Napoleon. I will annex more and more universes to your great, you know, quasi-empire, to your union. I will get you more forces, but you gotta let me run my trade. And so, effectively, right, whilst the United Civilizations of the Multiverse have been committing their most talented people towards the war, and the Logicios have been committing their most talented people towards the war, the United Civilization of the Multiverse have also had, right, this villainous faction working for them, more or less, to expand their military might. And so, the moment the Far Nukes go, the moment the Lucys go, the Logicios have been fighting this war for so long, and they are so ground down, and they have just lost their best troops. They have just lost the Far Nukes. And by this point, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse is fucking massive, And oh, by the way, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse still has the Bam Kush. Right? And it's kind of like that point at the end of the French Revolution where Napoleon basically turns around and heads back to France. It's like, yes, I have expanded the glorious empire enough, now I am going to return home. And it's like where the founders of the revolution were guillotined, the founders of the United Civilizations of the Multiverse, the Lucys and the Farshnukes, they've vanished. They're gone. And so the Bam Kurshes, because again, right, there are entire, there's an entire multiverse of Bam Kurshes who've been working for the United Civilizations of the Multiverse, and they have got all their toys, all of their own armies of sort of, all their armies of sort of slave girls who they turn. And they've got the Contravoxi as well, because they've got all their own little deals that they've been doing, and they turn, and they swing around. And it's like, the United Civilizations of the Multiverse has got just enough momentum left to swing around and bash in to the Logicios. The Logicios have been wanting some real change as well for quite some time, but they haven't felt able to do it because it would take up too much resources, because you don't want to divert resources from the front line to fight this civil war. And then the SLF get involved, and it's like, and if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to pause right here. So the Logicios are defanged. They're facing civil war within their own ranks. They're facing the SLF launching terrorist insurgency after terrorist insurgency against them. They are facing Sylph uprisings. Essentially, all their slaves are sensing that, this is the moment. They're weak now, and they're fighting back. The United Civilizations of the Multiverse has enough cohesion left to turn around and smack the Logicios against the side. The Bam Kurshes come in to give like the final killing blow. And the Logicios are neutered. They're crushed. They are reformed. By the time they are left, they don't have the strength. By the time that this is done, all that's left, even once it has been reformed, there aren't enough of them left to patrol the multiverse, let alone to provide some kind of grand overriding force to, keep law and order and stuff like that. They're just, at this point, they're just trying to focus on reform and help be a part of this monitoring of effects. And of course, apart from anything else, the Logicios were founded by the Farshnukes. They're meant to monitor Farshnukes. There aren't going to be any more Farshnukes, right? Or at least if there aren't going to be nearly as many as there were before. So they don't have, the Logicios aren't patrolling the multiverse. The Logicios aren't the multiversal sort of structure anymore. The United Civilizations of the Multiverse were basically held together by Lucy, by the Farshnukes, by the threat of the end of the multiverse, and by the need to destroy the Logicios, because the Logicios were the oppressors that kind of that instigated the foundation of the United Civilization of the Multiverse in the first place, right? And so, with the Septagonoids gone, with the Logicios no longer a threat, with without that force of personality to keep them there and together, they just sort of slowly defragment and go their separate ways, because actually, you know what, we've lost a lot of people. You know, we're talking about a multiversal war that will have devastated entire civilizations, because we just need troops, right? Particularly in the final battles, right? So entire universes have just been devastated, and so the United Civilizations of the Multiverse disunites, they disband, and they, you know, I mean, it kind of happens slowly over time, you know, and they dwindle away, and you know, maybe there are a few pockets that still, maybe there are still, you know, 7 universes that still claim to call themselves, you know, the United Civilization of the Multiverse, and but they're not really a viable thing anymore. And so all that's left is the Bamkersh in the SLF. I mean, there are also the Architects of Chaos, but at this point, the Architects of Chaos, by the way, are kind of Jafaxi's forces. And the Architects of Chaos are basically, they are the sort of, they're the heroes. They're the people who each choose to go out into the world and each try to help it in their own way. Like, they have no empire. They have no bureaucracy. They just do what they can to help. So kind of, they become the sort of de facto patrollers of the multiverse, because the Logicios have been crippled. The United Civilizations of the multiverse have disbanded. And of course, you know, the Bamkersh, right? The Bamkershes, they don't really care about the multiverse, right? Like, they cared enough because, you know, the Septagonoids were the grand threat. And they cared enough because the Logicios were the empire that could stand opposed to the Bamkersh, because essentially the Logicios were able to ensnare the Farshnuk and use the Farshnuk, and so the Logicios were basically the one thing that could pose a threat to the Bamkersh. But now the Farshnuk is dead, Lucy's dead, the Logicios are dead, and the Bamkershes are like, yay! And equally, the SLF, there really isn't anything for them to do except keep an eye on the Bamkersh. And it's kind of like, at this point, the SLF and the Bamkersh's stuff are waning, right? And that's an issue, because essentially the Bamkershes make their money. They have their power from this legitimacy that the United Civilizations of the Multiverse granted. They have this power. They have their power and their ability to do what they do, to be the toy maker and to make money from what they do, because of the legitimacy granted by this overarching multiversal bureaucracy, right? Once that's gone, they're just a bunch of sort of mad scientist fetishists going, "Won't you buy my cloned woman?" And they're approaching universes that have no reason not to say, "Fuck off, you weirdo," right? And again, right, like, in the rush to sort of destroy the Logicios, their own forces and their own power was kind of destroyed as well. And they can't operate in a world without some kind of multiversal structure. And at the same time, right, the SLF, their job isn't done now at this point, right? It's not like, hey, we've outlasted the people who were mistreating, you know, filth. No, there are still tons of stuff out there. There are still, you know, the Bamkirches are still out there because, you know, the Bamkirches, you know, they're kind of chaotic neutral, right? Like, they'll care in the event of a multiversal threat, otherwise they don't give a shit. And so they're still, to a certain extent, turning up to universes saying, hey, look at this, you know, multiverse, United Civilizations, multiverse, hey, it's their laws. And so, to a certain extent, maybe the United Civilizations of the multiverse still quasi-exists in the sense that there are all these different universes that claim that still think they're part of this United Civilizations of the multiverse, whereas really all it really is at this point is just a bunch of trading routes. The power has gone, right? And so the SLF are still needed. The SLF is still needed to, you know, liberate Sylphs and, you know, keep the Bamkirches in check, right? Because that's the other thing. The Bamkirch, bad individual, right? And wfhZlhmSZ8Q can't really take on the Bamkirch in a fight, right? Like, it takes a certain amount of deviousness and malevolence to compete on that level. The kind of the nicer elder gods can't really do. And so the plot of this sort of mini-series is the SLF basically deciding that they need to create a new god to fill the kind of slot in the pantheon of the Farshnute, to go out and retake the multiverse, but to do so in accordance with sort of SLF values. And that's kind of what this is about. And so it really is a reboot of the Farshnute without throwing out the past Farshnute canon, without throwing out the events that happened before, because this is a introduction to the story, an introduction to the series, and the kind of the mini-series that I am writing here is kind of, each part is focused on adding a new member to this organization that will go on to found the new multiversal society. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. And I know that at this point, right, my explanation of what I'm doing now might actually be longer than the rest of the video, but you know, I care about this. This matters to me. Anyway, I'm going to go and watch Twin Peaks now because I'm liking it. And I will not be reading the comments because I do not want spoilers. Yeah, anyway, see you. Thank you to all my Patreons at patreon.com for helping to make videos like this possible. If you wish to leave a like or dislike to rate the video for my analytics, that would be much appreciated. Comments are always welcome, though be aware that they will be moderated before being published, so please be civil. If you liked this video, please consider adding it to your favourites, sharing it to your friends, or subscribing. If you wish to help me out, or my channels, please consider whitelisting my videos in your adblock software, subscribing for monthly donations through Patreon, or giving a small one-off donation. Alternatively, I have a Steam wishlist for games I would consider Let's Playing or streaming, so if you would like to see me broken before the Dark Souls altar, or just happen to have gotten a duplicate of a game in a humble bundle, then you know what to do. I also have an official Facebook fan page, Twitter account, Tumblr, Reddit and blog, so you can stay up to date with all of my videos, blog articles and the things I care about. Links are in the video description. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I think that all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional representation. Oh, and also, fuck the racists and fuck the alt-right.